Happy Sunday to all of you. My name is Scott Tansill, and you are listening to Your Legacy Radio. Your Legacy Radio is all about what it is you want to leave behind as you pass on to a bigger and better place. As we leave this earth, what do we want to leave behind? What I've found in life is that everyone wants to leave behind a thought process, an understanding, and even material things for their loved ones when they leave this earth. That is what I would call a legacy, and it's been a long time in process that I wanted to create a show and create a thought process that would understand and dive into how to create that legacy in the best possible way. The sponsor of Your Legacy Radio is River Wealth Solutions. River Wealth Solutions is an organization that helps individuals who are affected by a terminal illness. In fact, their mission statement is providing a more fulfilled life to those affected by a terminal illness. And all of you know my story as far as what I grew up with. I was affected by a terminal illness years and years, 35 years ago now, and I had 6 months to live, and I'm 40 years old today. And being affected by a terminal illness obviously does not mean that an individual is not going to make it. It just means that this is the season they're in, and they just have to do things that they need to do in order to overcome that, quote, terminal illness that they've been given the status of. So throughout this show, we're going to talk about how to develop a proper legacy, the legacy that you want to leave behind. What are the things that you can do, and what are the things that you have as far as funds that you currently have that you can utilize to create that legacy that you're looking to leave behind. I've got Joe Del Monte from Accelerated Wealth, who's going to be on the show with me in the second and third segment. He's going to discuss something called a guaranteed indexed account. And a guaranteed indexed account is oftentimes used to create a legacy, a financial legacy for loved ones, because it's an account that you can put capital into. It's protected to the downside, and it has upside potential for you. So you have upside potential where you can make money on the upside. I also want to discuss throughout this show something called a living resource benefit, which is another vehicle to create a legacy that River Wealth Solutions helps individuals to identify and then create within their life. And a living resource benefit is where someone has a life insurance policy that they no longer need or want, and they want to use that as the asset that it was intended to be used for, and that's to get money from the policy into their life. But they want to use it in a different way than what most are trained in the aspect of using a life insurance policy and what they're trained as to it creating. Most individuals think and believe that a life insurance policy is simply there to create a benefit for when they are no longer here. When they leave this earth, that's when the life insurance policy kicks in. That's what individuals are trained to understand and believe. If you called your insurance company today, they're going to tell you that's what that policy is for. However, what they will not tell you is that that policy is actually an asset. And if you want to and can keep that policy in effect until you leave this earth, and then it is a benefit for your family, it is part of your legacy in that way, then that's the proper thing to do. If you can afford to keep the policy, and if it makes sense for you to keep it, you don't need the money right now, I would say keep the policy and have it in effect when you leave this earth. Most individuals don't do that. Over 90% of all policies lapse before they pay out. It's a wonderful game for the insurance company, but it's not so great for the insured individual. And the insured individual has that policy that they can utilize if they said, okay, you know what, I can't afford the policy anymore, or I need assets right now because I've been affected by a terminal illness, or I've got a loved one that needs to go into a nursing home and they have a policy, and we need to get assets out of that policy, get funds out of that policy now. We need the funds right now. That policy is an asset that now they can utilize to create funds. It's called a living resource benefit, and you can get more information about a living resource benefit by going to livingresourcebenefit.com. Once you receive the capital from that policy, you can use the funds however you wish. I mean, there's a transaction that can be done, and it's a non-taxable transaction to where you actually sell the policy, you sell the life insurance policy, you receive the benefit, but the benefit doesn't go directly to you. It goes into a managed account, and that managed account would then pay for your health care bills, any healthcare invoices, any healthcare bills that come about due to your healthcare would then go to that managed account, the custodian of that managed account, and they would pay your healthcare bills. Now, in doing that, you don't pay taxes on that capital. So there's a huge benefit in that transaction for an individual that says, look, I want to take this benefit, but yet I'm going to live another 10 years and I don't want to pay taxes on this capital. So I want to have it pay my medical bills. Well, that's a way that you can do that. Now, one of the things that I've been doing this week is I've actually been meeting with a lot of healthcare facilities within the Charlotte, North Carolina area. And I've been discussing with them the living resource benefit as far as a way for individuals to utilize that benefit in paying their nursing home care, as well as nursing home facilities is who I was meeting with. Also met with the ALS chapter here in the Carolinas this week too. And for both of those meetings, all of the meetings that I've had with nursing homes and the ALS chapter, it was an extreme benefit to them to understand the transaction of a living resource benefit and how it could be used within that managed account to pay healthcare expenses tax-free. So, as an example, we have a client that we're working with right now, and they're going to be moving into a nursing home facility. Well, they have a life insurance policy that's $350,000. They're going to use that policy to create the benefit to where they'll have their health care paid for about 24 months, and then they'll still have a death benefit of about $5,000 that they can utilize from that policy. So to them, it makes perfect sense because otherwise they don't have the money to move into the facility they choose to and get the health care that they want to. And that's where it becomes a necessary transaction for an individual. Heard about a lot of instances where an ALS patient, meeting with the ALS chapter for North Carolina this past week, where an ALS patient or someone is identified as having ALS, which is a horrible, horrible disease, by the way. I mean, I just had some stories told to me this past week, and I knew it was a really, really bad disease, but it's just everything. It's just not a good disease, and there's no terminal disease that is good. But my prayers go out to anyone who was affected by ALS for sure. And the living resource benefit for that individual is such a blessing because oftentimes they're affected by ALS in their 40s or even in their 30s or 50s, even if it's in their 60s. It's a disease that comes on without much notice. I mean, it's there, but it takes a while to identify. The doctors don't have a test that they can run to identify the disease right out of the gate. So it takes really just ruling out everything else to even identify that ALS is kind of the culprit of what's going on, and it's what's creating the effects that the individual is having with their health. And then once it's identified, oftentimes it can be a very fast-moving disease. Now, if someone goes from total mobility to ALS and mobility goes away fairly quickly in some cases, a lot of times the first thing they want to do when they've identified, okay, it is ALS, is they want to take a trip. They want to take a trip and get out of town, get out of Dodge, get out of life in a way by going to somewhere really, really nice. But yet they don't have the funds to be able to take the dream trip that they want to take. So, we discussed with the ALS chapter as far as, okay, well, how can they create this living resource benefit to take that trip and how can they do it tax-free? Well, there's ways to do that, and we'll work with each individual case and each individual scenario to help them understand how to put that transaction in place properly. If they wanted to move into a healthcare facility, same living resource benefit could be created within a managed account to pay their healthcare expenses, but yet it would all be tax-free. So I know I'm kind of throwing a lot of things at you, and there's so many more thought processes and just overall directions that we could go with this living resource benefit thought process. But it all boils down to the individual scenario. What is going on within the individual's life? What is going on as far as their needs for health care? What is going on as far as their needs for finances? Is there a way not to create a living resource benefit, but yet take the capital that they have, utilize that in a proper tax-free type transaction scenario to pay for their health care, get them to the point where they're comfortable, they're happy, they're doing the things that they want to do, they're creating the legacy that they want to create? Or is it saying, okay, well, no, the only other option we have is the living resource benefit. What kind of policy do you have? How much is the face value? How do we create that living resource benefit? And then how do we do it in the most beneficial way tax-wise for you? So I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you want more information about a living resource benefit, there is a lot of information online on our website. You can go to livingresourcebenefit.com. That's livingresourcebenefit.com. Or you can call us directly at 866-500-2922. That's 866-500-2922. The thing that I would say in the organization that I have put into place with River Wealth Solutions is here to answer your questions, because there's so, I know that just the brief things that I threw out throughout this segment has only created more questions. And that's where I see a huge need within the space of a living resource benefit as far as helping individuals to understand the transaction and understand how to put the transaction in place in the most proper way for what it is they're looking to accomplish. I'll discuss more about a living resource benefit as we go through the show, but as I said, in the next segment, I've got Joe Del Monte with Accelerated Wealth. We'll talk about how to utilize the living resource benefit, create the guaranteed indexed account. Again, it's in the next segment, so stay tuned. You're listening to Your Legacy Radio right here on News Talk 1110 WBT and on WBT.com.